Hello and welcome to this INAV Quick Tip. Now, in the middle of the series at the moment, and we have already started to build our fixed wing models. Now, one of the things that a couple of pilots have noticed and contacted me about, and is also something that the INAV dev team are also getting asked about as well, is the fact that if you flick between pass-through and either angle or horizon, the deflection on the controls, particularly things like the elevator and aileron, reduce dramatically. And this video is just to explain why that is, also tell you that that's absolutely what it should be doing, and that means it's working, and finally to give you a couple of tips and tricks at the end. So first of all, let's talk about why this is happening and what is actually going on that means that we have much smaller deflections of our control surfaces when we're asking the flight controller to do something for us. So let's talk about pass-through mode first, where we're getting that big deflection on our control surfaces that we've carefully set up as part of INAV. And that is happening because the PWM value from the controls on your radio go straight through the flight controller, out the other side, and then into the servos out in the wings and the tail and other places on the model. So this deflection of the servo is directly proportional to the PWM value that you're sending from your radio. Exactly the same as you'd expect with lots of traditional planes, and that's how we fly planes that don't have flight controllers and things like INAV in. The complexity comes a little bit when you get into angle and horizon mode. Now, rather than there being a direct connection between the PWM value on the radio and the position of the servo on the plane, something else is going on. What happens is the flight controller hears that you want to move the model in a particular direction, and that's the angle command. Then it works out the position of the craft, the angle that you actually want, and figures out the angle error. Then it works out what the angle error means in terms of rates and movements, making sure of course that it doesn't go above the maximum rate in the settings, and then it figures out the rate error, and once it knows the rate error, then it can figure out what the servo deflection needs to do and then send that to the servo. Now all of those little boxes are actually part of INAV, and that's what INAV doing. And this is part of the reason why when you're in angle and horizon mode, the deflection that you see on a bench isn't the same deflection that you see through pass-through. And that's primarily because what's actually happening here is you are not controlling the servo directly, you are asking INAV to do a specific move. Once it's actually in flight, then you'll probably find that the deflection may be a little more or a little less, and INAV will manage that deflection based on the maximum settings that you have for things like the max angle for a roll and the max angle for pitch, and they are both settable in the CLI. By default, I think they're about 300, which is about 30 degrees. So if you're getting towards the end of the setup in your flight controller with INAV, and you get to the point where you're testing everything out and you see the deflection of things like the elevator and the ailerons reduce quite a bit when you are flicking into angle or pass-through mode, that is completely expected. All that's happening is rather than you control the servo directly, you're telling INAV what you want to do, and INAV is starting that move, and unless the plane's flying, you're not going to see the rest of the movement because INAV will manage all of that as part of how it flies your craft. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. There are lots of other videos on the channel and they're carefully ordered into playlists, so you may find that there are other videos on this same subject that you can go and watch. So I would recommend going into the playlist area of Painless 360 YouTube channel and looking around and seeing what there is. You never know what you might find. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and happy flying.